And here we go, the top 5 RFA targets for the Pittsburgh Penguins. For that matter, for a lot of teams in the rebuild, retool, revamp mode, as there are several teams, actually a lot of teams, who are very competitive up against that salary cap. So let's dive into this here. Some pretty good names. Now, before we get into the top 5 target list, let's set the ground rules here, especially for the Penguins, because they've got a pretty high draft pick in 2026, most likely. They're not going to be very good. So RFA compensation is based upon how much you pay that restricted free agent. Got that? Last season, it was anything over $4.59 million would cost the new team a first and a third round pick. The Penguins aren't going to do that. There will be a bump in that number for 2025. So let's say about $5 million. Okay, so any RFA that costs more than $5 million would cost the Penguins potentially a very valuable draft pick. Not going to happen, not going to do it. So we're focused on that $5 million and lower tier. We're using AFP Analytics. They've done their mid-season report card and projections for RFAs and unrestricted free agents. They've been pretty accurate in the past. So we're using their contract projections on these RFAs to kind of get a sense of what the Penguins and who the Penguins can afford. The other little caveat that I think sometimes people forget, a team must forfeit its original draft pick. For example, just because the Penguins have 2 picks in 2025 doesn't mean they could forfeit one of those. They have to forfeit their original pick. They can't just give away the second worst pick. That's why St. Louis had to come back to the table with the Penguins last summer and get that second rounder they gave Pittsburgh to take Kevin Hayes. The Penguins obviously benefited from that, getting a different second round pick and a third round pick to boot. St. Louis got their original second rounder back and was able to sign Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway with their second and third rounders. Got it? Good. Let's dive into the top 5 list. Now, I have put these on Pittsburgh Hockey Now. For those of you who think I'm just a YouTube star and celebrity, sarcasm noted, hopefully. We wrote this out in great detail on Pittsburgh Hockey Now. So, top 5 list. Let's start in no particular order. That's Mason McTavish there, checking Evgeny Malkin. McTavish, a former high draft pick of the Anaheim Ducks, one of a plethora of young players who just hasn't really found their stride in Anaheim. And quite frankly, there are cultural problems in Anaheim. They need to make some changes. Who knows if they're going to want to re-sign McTavish? That's been a big question mark. They might look at a second-round pick as a nice compensation. Now, for McTavish, 6'1", 207 pounds. AFP projects him to sign a 2-year contract with a $3.5 million average annual value. This season, he's actually had a little bit of a resurgence at midseason into the later year. He hadn't put it together until probably midseason this year. 40 points in 61 games. That includes 18 goals. The good, lots of hands, offensive instincts. The bad, not so great on the skates. He is a centerman. I think the Penguins would do well to try to replenish their center stock. Evgeny Malkin has one more season left, and I'm not sure he'll really be an effective center next year. After that, the Penguins really don't have anything coming up in the pipeline. It's remained to be seen if Tristan Brose is a center or a wing at the top level. And quite frankly, Brose is probably a third-line type center. So if the Penguins can find a scoring center, a guy who can handle a second line, that bears noting and probably bears chasing. Number 2, here's the one I really like. Will Cully, a power forward for the New York Rangers. Here's the deal. The New York Rangers are going to have about $10 million in salary cap space, but they must re-sign Keandre Miller. Miller's going to eat up most of that $10 million. And AFP Analytics projects Cully at about a 3-year contract, $3.4 million per. The Penguins can easily pay that. And quite frankly, the Penguins can probably overpay him in order to make sure the Rangers can't pay him. Like I mentioned, Cully, a power forward, 18 goals this year, only 37 points in 68 games, but he's still a young guy at, 22, 23 years old. You have to like his size, 6'3", 212 pounds. Boy, the Penguins could use, some jam and some scoring jam on their wings, couldn't they? They're getting incredibly soft. No brainer. If he's there, July 1st, the Penguins should actually make a priority and sign him. And the Rangers can't really, unless they find a way to shed other salary. I happen to think there'll be plenty of teams lined up for him. Let's go to number 3. This one might be a little bit controversial. You might say, I don't know, Dan. Jack Quinn of the Buffalo Sabres can play both wings. He is a scoring winger through and through. That's the good and the bad for Jack Quinn. Not a big guy, 6 foot tall, $176. A good Buffalo breeze can move him sometimes. Those are the problems. Obviously, as a scoring winger, you're always trying to develop a more complete game. He hasn't yet scored at a prodigious level at the NHL or in the NHL. This season, he's got all of 27 points in 58 games. Last season, he was injured a lot, but in his limited time, he put up 19 points in 27 games, and Buffalo thought he was turning the corner. Their former number 1 pick just hasn't yet put it together like so many of the other young Buffalo players. He might put a few gray hairs on Mike Sullivan. There's no question about that. But for a second-round pick, you get a guy who legitimately has 20-goal, 25-goal talent who could play with Sidney Crosby. If you think you can extract that complete game out of him, yeah, you definitely take a look. AFP, let me take a look here. AFP, here's maybe the downside. AFP is projecting him at $5.8 million on a 1-year deal. I disagree with AFP on that. I don't think anyone is going to shell out that kind of money for Quinn. The talent is there. The production hasn't been. I don't see Buffalo giving him basically $6 million on a show me sort of deal. I do see the Penguins being able to give just about $5 million on a short show me deal. He would be perfect for their transition, able to play with Malkin or Crosby, and probably loving life in doing so. Let's take a look at number 4. I'm told this one will not happen for anybody. That's Mackie Samoskevich, former late first-round pick of the Florida Panthers. Now, here's why I put him on the list. Florida is going to have about $19 million this summer, but they have to sign Sam Bennett. They have to sign either Aaron Ekblad, their number 1 defenseman, or an Ekblad replacement. I think those guys are going to take up most of that $19 million. Also, Samoskevich has been largely cast in a 4th-line role down in Florida due to some injuries and opportunities. He's really been putting the puck in the net. Over his last 35 games, he's got about 24 points. The talent is there. The speed is there. AFP projects him to sign a 2-year contract with a $2.4 million AAV. That actually puts him down in 3rd-round pick compensation territory. Is he a guy you would overpay for? If Florida doesn't get around to him, could the Penguins swoop in, offer more than Florida can pay? It's going to get cutthroat this summer. Make no mistake, I think St. Louis finally broke the seal last summer. For 2 decades, RFAs have been taboo. No, you don't do that to another team. They'll come back and take yours. See the Montreal, Carolina spat over Suzuki or Kotkaniemi. That was the big fear. Since Edmonton didn't retaliate or really can't retaliate, and St. Louis had, got good value in Broberg and Holloway, you're going to see a lot more teams go there this summer. Penguins GM Kyle Dubas has already referenced the possibility of doing so. So there's the top four. Now, here's a guy that has deserved an NHL chance for years. Formerly called the best player in the AHL. That's Maverick Bourque. A little ball of energy with pretty good hands. This is basically his rookie season. 21 points is all he has amassed and kind of being shuffled all around the Dallas lineup. First line, fourth line. 10 goals, 11 assists. Here is a guy who has put in his time. He has fought his way all up to the NHL. Dallas didn't bring him up largely because they were full. They didn't have the space for him. Now, AFP doesn't think he's going to get paid a lot. I mean, of course, 21 points in, 60 games isn't great. AFP says he's only in line for about a $1.8 million contract. If there was an overpay and it only cost you a third-round pick, do it, and do it twice on Sunday. So there are your top 5 RFA targets for the Penguins. You'll notice I didn't put any defensemen on the list. They're going to be expensive. Every defenseman in the NHL this season seemingly has been claimed on waivers. It's been that much of a depleted pool. And the other RFA defensemen, Evan Bouchard, Luke Hughes in New Jersey. Yeah, they'll cost you a bundle. They'll cost you even more than a first and third round pick. But quite frankly, if the Penguins were going to go crazy, Luke Hughes would be the guy that I would give up, first, second, third, or multiple firsts to acquire. A young defenseman with that kind of skill. Maybe, just maybe. All right, there's your list. I'm Dan Kingerski on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now YouTube channel.